A fresh harvest from farm to tea table. Hey everyone, I'm Sigi and I love all things pu'er. Today, I'm trying something new once again. I've got these two teas with me, this one and this one, and as we already saw in the intro, they are quite fresh. These teas are from the 2022 spring harvest. I've got one tea here from the Bangdong area in Lincang, and I've got one tea here from the Baihuatan area in Yiwu. Now, these teas are so fresh, they're not even on the website yet. Gabriele received them and basically immediately sent them out to me for me to do a review video. So this is basically like the freshest pu'er I can get, and probably the freshest pu'er I've ever had. In that sense, it's going to be a new experience for me, which I think is always interesting, and I'm glad that you all are joining me for this experience today. So, what can we say about the teas? I'd say let's get into them, and as I start steeping, I'm going to tell you a bit about them. So, first up, here's a shot of the Baihuatan, the Yiwu, harvested this spring, and the Bangdong from Lincang, also harvested this spring. The first kind of difference in the dry leaf that I noticed is these leaves look a bit more green, like a sort of olive greenish tint, while these have a slightly more brownish hue. Okay, let's put them into our gaiwans here. I can also notice that the leaves of the Bangdong seem to be a little bit larger. Now, before we do anything with these, I've also got the bags here, of course, that the tea samples came in, and I'm going to use those for a quick dry leaf smell test. Let's see. Ooh, wow. Very aromatic. This is the Bangdong 2022. Nice. Yeah, it's like a bouquet of fruit smells just kind of hitting my nose. Very intense aroma, especially for a pu'er. And then this sort of, I'd say, resinous kind of smell underneath, like a wood resin type of thing. Very, very nice. Great first impression. Let's compare that to the Yiwu Baihuatan. This one is also really fresh, but I'd say it goes in a bit more of a floral direction than the Bangdong. It still just tastes so nice. It also has, it doesn't quite have that sort of resinous undertone of the Bangdong as well, but it makes up for that with, I feel like, even more sweetness overall. Like, it's got some of that fruitiness of the Bangdong, but then it also adds some floral notes to that, maybe with like a little bit of honey underneath. Both, of course, also smell very fresh, which is nice to see. So let's put these two bags to the side and start steeping. Since these teas, just from like what I got from the smell and from looking at this fresh tea, I think I'm going to start out with slightly shorter steeps than I usually do. So I'm going to put the water in there, put the water in there. That water isn't quite the same for both, so I'll add a little bit more here. And then I'll cover them up, and I probably won't wait for long to decant these. These also look really fresh and clean, so I'm not going to bother with rinsing. too much today. And I feel like the first steep could already be ready to go. So here's the Yiwu Baihuatan going in. And here's the Lincang Bangdong going in. Okay. So now, first things first, I'm gonna smell the wet leaves, see what kind of aromas opened up there from putting a bit of water on the tea. Okay. Now I'm definitely getting a bit of that sort of young tea type of smell here in the Yiwu Baihuatan. But it still retains these floral notes and the kind of strong aroma that it had. Quite nice. There's also another note I can't exactly put my finger on right now, but it's a very, very pleasant aroma. The leaves also look nice. Here I can show you this in the camera. Nice and whole, as expected of a pu'er matcha. Let's look what the Bangdong has to offer. Ooh, okay. So in the Bangdong, I'd say there's actually more of that green smell than in the Baihuatan, but there's also more overall. It still has that very kind of fruity aroma, but now the wet leaves also have this kind of savory umami note that you would expect from something that's more like a Japanese green tea. It's not too strong, but it's sort of like at the end of the smell, when you stop inhaling through your nose, then you get that hit of umami. It's really nice. For comparison, here are the leaves of the Bangdong. Now, as these teas just arrived and they haven't even been put on the website yet, I unfortunately can't tell you about the price for either. What I do know is the Baihuatan is more affordable than the Bangdong. The reason being that this Yiwu Baihuatan is made not from old tree material, not from like tidy or bushes either, but from younger trees. So actual trees that already have a tree trunk and whatnot, just not old trees in the sort of Dashu or Gushu sense. While the Bangdong is made from older tree material. What else can I tell you? The Yiwu Baihuatan. Baihuatan is a place that is a little bit south of Tongqinghe, which some of you might have heard of already. Very famous area. And it lies at an elevation of about 1,650 meters. Also a very nice place for pu'er. Those of you that have watched my other videos might know that I'm a big fan of Yiwu in general. So maybe this might suit my tastes. Though, of course, this Bangdong being from Lincang is also quite nice. If you want to get a general idea of like what you can expect from an Yiwu tea, what you can expect from a Lincang tea, like the two we have here, you can watch a video Gabriela and I did together a while ago about 3 famous pu'er terroirs and what we've come to identify as their sort of typical characteristics. Obviously, with the usual disclaimer, like you can't generalize too much. Every area is gonna have different sub areas that don't really fit that categorization, but those are just the sort of general flavors you can expect. For Yiwu, it's like a very pleasant kind of honey thing. For Bangdong or for Lincang in general, you can expect more of an herbaceous taste. Okay. Now I've spent enough time talking about these teas. They've been sitting in front of me, cooling down a little bit. Let's give them a taste. First off, in terms of color, the Bangdong looks a bit lighter than the Baihuatan. So I'm gonna start with the Bangdong. Oh, it's really hot. But very nice aftertaste. Nice texture. Definitely a young tea. Like, you notice that right away. This tea has a kind of freshness to it. It's hard to put into words, but like drinking it feels very refreshing. And this is a quality I think I haven't really seen much in Pu'er so far, just because I've never really had Pu'er this fresh. Another thing that's interesting about this is that I can notice this kind of umami smell that I've also had before, but it's really mostly a fragrance and not really a taste of the tea. It doesn't taste very umami. Obviously, like through the combination of uh, what you smell and what you taste, the kind of impressions of taste and aroma become mixed, and those senses are a bit difficult to keep apart. But it does seem like more of an aroma than a taste to me in this case. Also very nice to note, this tea is quite mouthwatering. I've been drinking this, like I finished half a cup already, and I haven't really gotten any astringency. Like, my mouth doesn't feel dry at all, my lips don't feel dry, my tongue doesn't feel pelty in any way. This is yeah, this is good drinking. Honestly. It's aromatic, it's flavorful, the texture is really pleasant. It feels inviting, if that makes sense, in the mouth. Like, this goes down very well, much better than I would have expected from a like very young Sheng. I admittedly would have expected both of these to be like kind of a bit rough, maybe a kind of intense and whatnot, and they, rather than being intense, as I said before, they are refreshing. They definitely feel youthful in a positive way, like alive, if you want to call it that. I like this. This makes for a very, very pleasant drink, especially, I think, during this kind of hot weather that we've got coming up with summer and whatnot. Very, very nice tea. Also, perfectly ready to drink now. Like, I probably wouldn't age this. I'd just get like a bag of it and finish it rather quickly, most likely. Now, on the other hand, we have the Yiwu Baihuatan. As I've mentioned before, the liquor color on this one is a bit darker. It's also made from younger trees than the Bangdong. So maybe we can find a bit of roughness in this one. Let's find out. Immediately, Not even like waiting until the aftertaste. Immediately as it enters the mouth, I get a kind of honey-like fragrance. So the floral notes from smelling both the dry leaf and the wet leaf certainly carry over into the taste. And texture-wise, I'm trying to find roughness, but it isn't really there. This one also feel like it's kind of interesting. This tea, I would describe, despite the like almost complete lack of astringency, I'd describe this tea as crisp in a certain way, or clear, refreshing, like I said before. This one, in comparison, feels rounder. It doesn't quite have these like sort of clearer spikes, but overall it presents itself in a very pleasant way. I will say that I think this tea has a bit more astringency. I can feel my tongue being a bit drier than before. But overall, it's still not a lot of astringency. Very, very drinkable tea. Now, one taste that I came across often when drinking younger Sheng, especially a few years ago, where that was my kind of main area of focus, is a taste that always reminded me of grains, like uh, like some wheat or similar things, barley maybe, and that's not really something I'm getting in either of these two teas. Like maybe a little tiny bit, like the vaguest idea of it, but there's so much other stuff going on that particular flavor doesn't really present itself to me here. Ah, instead, these are just very nice. And as these teas cool down a bit in my cups here, the flavor stays very nice, which is also great. Like sometimes when you drink tea as it cools down, it becomes like a bit unpleasant and whatnot, but that is absolutely not the case here. Let's see. God, both of these smell really nice. Okay, one here and one here. I don't know, this... To be honest, I feel like I'm just having fun right now. I'm having a very good time here with these two fresh teas. And it's kind of nice because for a good while, I used to no longer really enjoy drinking younger teas. Speaking of like teas that are 1 to 3 years old, not these very fresh ones, since I hadn't had those yet. But I've I used to feel like they weren't particularly good for my stomach. So coming back to them and actually being able to have fun with these teas now and enjoying them so much is a very nice thing for me. Okay, let's go. Decanting the Bangdong first this time, since that's also the one where I put water in first. And then the Baihuatan. Okay, on the second steep, honestly, the color is almost indistinguishable now. I'd say this one has more of a green tint. This one has more of a golden tint to it, as it currently stands. And yeah, I'd say let's not waste a lot of time. Sort of get right into the second steep. You may have noticed, as I've mentioned, I'm keeping the steep times a bit shorter this time. These are very fresh and aromatic teas that don't really need the kind of push that I usually give to other teas I'm drinking on here. And The texture by itself is also very pleasant and welcoming already. Like we don't need to turn this into a particularly concentrated tea. In general, that's a lesson I think you could also take away from this video. Adjust your steeping technique. Obviously, you can always work from like a certain baseline in the way like we described in our How to Brew Pu'er video, but ultimately, every tea has its own characteristics, and one important thing to learn and to keep an open mind about is preparing your tea in a way that fits not just you as a person, but also the particular tea you're drinking. Let's try the Baihuatan first this time. See if reversing the order reveals any new insights about these two. Okay, they are a fair bit stronger already in this second steep. I'm definitely getting some astringency from this tea now. The mouth drying effect was rather quick after swallowing. But the flavors are still on point. Very nice. Okay. Yeah, with the exception of the changes in texture, not a lot has happened to this tea. It does feel a bit stronger now. As I said, there's more astringency, but flavor-wise, it's kind of still the same. Very nice. But even as I'm drinking this, I have to admit, I'm already looking forward to the Bangdong a little bit more. I like this Baihuatan quite a lot. It's very nice. It's also quite refreshing. It has good texture. It has really nice flavors. But there was something about that Bangdong that makes it a bit more exciting than the Baihuatan. Now, don't get me wrong. This is still a really, really nice tea. And I think if you want to taste like a really fresh Yiwu tea, this is a great thing to buy. Now, what about the Bangdong on the second steep? Let's see if we have any changes here. There it is, just a little bit, that kind of grainy taste that I've talked about before. I'm getting a little bit of that on the second steep, but I think, let me take another sip. Yeah, I think this Bangdong retained its mouth-watering qualities even on the second steep. Like that dryness I felt when I was drinking the Baihuatan is almost entirely gone after just 2 sips. This is a really mouth-watering tea, and I think that's one of the reasons what contributes to the impression that it's such a like nice and pleasant and refreshing tea. It just sort of slides around the mouth very well, if that makes sense. It also presents like, I don't know, it's difficult to really say properly what I mean by this, but like it feels a little bit more cohesive than the Baihuatan, or a bit more. I don't want to say mature because then it sort of invokes ideas of aging and whatnot, which I'm not looking for here. But it has more of a complexity to it. Very good. Okay. Let's round this review out with one final steep for both of them. These very fresh teas, very aromatic. It's nice. And also interesting to note, I think, is that the nature of this kind of fresh Sheng Pu'er is still quite different from that of a, let's say, fresh green tea. The kind of flavors you tend to get and the overall impression you get from it are still quite different. Okay. I am going to wait a little bit longer on this steep to really see like where these teas go if we push them a bit, which I think is appropriate for the last steep we're doing in this video. How long should we wait this time? maybe a tiny little bit longer, and then we can gather our final impressions. Okay, I think this should be good. That's one, and that's two. All right. Okay, this is interesting. After doing this slightly longer and more pushed steep, the difference in color that almost vanished on the second steep has re-emerged. It's probably a bit difficult to see on camera, but again, this Bangdong has a lighter color, more of a greenish hue to it, while the Yiwu Baihuatan has more of a golden color and is darker overall. I think for this last steep, I'm going to drink the Bangdong first again. We just finished the second steep of the Bangdong and we still have that one in our minds. So now we can actively compare how it changes to that. Or from that, sorry. It has some very good fullness now. But it's quite savory on the steep compared to the other two. Still very fresh aromas, though I'd say that overall refreshing impression that I got on the first two steeps is a bit diminished in this one. Oh yeah, one thing I do want to mention, as always, if you enjoy this kind of video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you can. I do actually have a good question for all of you watching today. Now, when you're drinking a fresh pu'er tea like this, and you have it in your gaiwan or you have it in your I Ching teapot, between the steeps, do you leave the lid on your gaiwan or your pot, or do you take it off and put it somewhere else? And depending on either answer, why do you do that? I'd love to hear about it. As you might have noticed, I'm somebody who tends to leave the lid on. I honestly don't really have a good reason for it. I think I do it because I want to try to retain more heat, as my sort of personal idea is that more heat is always better for pu'er tea. But I'm not really sure if that would also apply to such a fresh and young pu'er tea. And I'm also not really sure if there are any potential negative side effects of leaving the lid on. So if you do have any idea about that, definitely let me know in the comments. On this third steep, the Bangdong has also developed a little bit of astringency, but even after pushing it, it's just so little. It's really not a lot of astringency. Very nice. Very crisp and fresh tea. Really great on a warm summer day like this one. And now, for the last cup of tea of the video, once again, the Yiwu Baihuatan. I'm expecting the astringency on this to have ramped up a fair bit on this strong steep. Yeah, even while it's still in the mouth, you can feel that it's a little bit like kind of grippy, if that makes sense. It's quite viscous. But the flavors are still there in full force. I'd say it's even remained more flavorful than the Bangdong on this third steep, or maybe there was like more kind of flavor to extract overall, if that makes sense. Like the Bangdong is more of a gentle tea, and this Baihuatan is a bit stronger overall. That being said, though, I love this Bangdong tea for how crisp, how refreshing it is. It really is just such a good tea to drink on a warm day. And the way it makes your mouth water on these shorter steeps is honestly quite beautiful. Now this Yiwu, on the other hand, a more robust tea overall, but still a very round flavor experience flavor-wise. And it's got the kind of texture that keeps you interested in it. Like on this third steep, it really ramped up the viscosity. The astringency is still there. It's honestly fairly strong on this steep, but it definitely not in a bad way. I quite enjoy this right now. And I think not just the individual teas by themselves, but also the specific contrast between these two was very interesting. Both, I think, are great kind of teas to drink in summer in their own way. I'd say what you get from the Bangdong is closer to the kind of experience you would get from drinking a green tea in hot weather, whereas the experience you get from the Baihuatan is kind of a different one. To be clear, I'm not implying that this would be like a green tea like Sheng Pu'er in any way. I'm just saying that the crispness and the way it's refreshing is more reminiscent of the kind of reasons why people would drink a green tea when the weather is hot. Whereas the Yiwu with its sort of texture and the way it kind of plays in your mouth would, I think, provide more of a distraction from the heat, if that makes sense. Like this is basically more comparable to a cold beverage, whereas this one is like comparable to maybe eating a curry during hot weather, not because it makes you sweat, but because there are so many different spices and flavors going on that your mind gets occupied with that rather than focusing on how hot the weather is. They're both really nice teas. I do recommend, if you get the chance, to give them a try. And I hope to hear about your experiences with them soon as they are put up on the store. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see each other next time. Goodbye.